Hey everybody, it is your travel agent David, and today I'm going to break down some of the most common cruise terms so that if you're thinking about going on a cruise, but you may be a little bit intimidated as to what is a room called and what side is left and what side is right and what do they call the forward, and if you're just overwhelmed by it all, this video is going to help you break it all down. So if you're interested in cruising, stick around because we are going to get busy. So the first term that we're going to go over is crossing. It's very simple. We're going to start off small and work our way up. A crossing is just a ship going across the water. That's it. Now, here's one where it starts to get a little bit sketchy, right, if you will. Departure port, embarkation port. Okay? So both of them refer to the port or location. Okay? So the departure port and embarkation port are like the same thing. You're going to be departing. Let's use Galveston. Your departure port is Galveston, and your return port could be Galveston. Or maybe you're going, like we're going to go from Tokyo to Los Angeles. So our departure port is Tokyo. Our arrival port is Los Angeles. We are embarking, right, getting on in Tokyo, and we are debarking, getting off in Los Angeles. So departure port, embarkation port, same things. You're departing from and getting onto the ship and departing from, and then your arrival and debark are the same. It could be Galveston to Galveston. Like I'm going on one from Galveston. We're going to Costa Maya, Honduras, and Cozumel. We are departing from and arriving from or to Galveston. Our embarkation port is Galveston. Our debarkation port is Galveston. Okay. So disembarkation, like I mentioned, it is when you get off of the ship. And embarkation is when you get on the ship. Port of call. The port of call are the ports that you're going to go to. So our port of call for this cruise I'm doing in January is Honduras, Costa Maya, Cozumel. Shore excursion. A shore excursion are the activities you're going to do off the cruise ship. The cruise lines offer shore excursions. You can get off the ship on your own time, book your own excursions through like Viator or Travelocity or whoever, your travel agent, and then you go do it and you come back. Now, when it comes to shore excursions, let me give you this little tidbit of pro advice. Let's just use Honduras for example. When I get to Honduras, I'm taking a shore excursion through the cruise line. There's some benefits for it. There's some negatives too. Usually when you book from the shore excursions from the cruise ship, they're a little bit more pricier than if you did the same thing on your own. But it comes with a little bit of a guarantee. Let's say I'm getting off the cruise ship and I'm going to go whale watching. But there's somebody else that booked a whale watching on the same cruise, booked a whale watching, and they're in the bus right next to us, right? We're just going down the road to where the whale watching is. But my bus breaks down. The other bus keeps on going. They get to go see the sightseeing or whatever. Ours, we missed the boat. We have to go back to the ship. We're getting a refund. Okay? The other way, you may not get a refund. Now, let's say bus breaks down. They get it, the second bus, the one that booked themselves, they get to go on the whale watching tour and stuff like that. They come back and our bus is still broken down and the ship's supposed to leave at 6 p.m. and it's 5:59 and we're still on a bus waiting for a tow truck. They're going to hold the ship for us because that excursion was booked through the ship. So they're going to wait for that bus to come back and we get on that ship. We're going to get a refund because we didn't get to do anything, and that ship doesn't leave with us. Now, let's say that second bus, the ones that booked on themselves, their bus breaks down. We get to do it. We come back. We're like, man, that sucks. We get on the ship. It's 6 o'clock is the departure time. It's 6 o'clock, and that bus is still broken down, waiting to get people to the ship. That ship's going to be like, boo, boo, and it's going to go. So you don't have that. So for me, I'd rather not have to worry about that one-off possibility, and then I got to try and figure out how I can get from that port to the next port or whatever, because then it's added costs and stuff like that. So shore excursions, I always recommend that you book them through the cruise line, just for that added convenience. Okay, or know for a fact that wherever you're going, you can go do something with a Uber or Lyft, a taxi, and you're going to be back with a couple hours to spare. Okay, if you're going to be in port for 8 hours, you're doing something for 2 hours, and you know that you can get back in time, go for it. But if you're cutting it close, you may want to just book through the cruise ship. A tender. Okay, tender is not a piece of chicken. Okay, it is not a touch. It is actually a small boat, and it's typically lifeboats from the cruise ship that will take you from the cruise ship to the port. So there are certain places, like we went to the Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands is a tender port. So the ship will park, parallel to the island or whatever, and then they will lower some of the lifeboats. But over in the Cayman Islands, they have a company that does it. You get onto the boats, and then they take you into the port because the port isn't shallow enough for the bigger boats. So you'll find that a lot of times on the bigger boats. We were on an Azamara one, and we went to, I want to say it was Ilhabela in Brazil, and that was a tender port. And we had to take a 40-minute tender ride to get to the port, and then we were going on a snorkeling ride. So we got back on a schooner and then passed our cruise ship. So it would have been cool if they could have just hooked the schooner up to the cruise ship. We got off, we could have more time. But that is what a tender is. So with Royal Caribbean, they offer the key. If you're going to go to a place that is a tender port, I really recommend that you get the key, because if you get the key, then you get access to the ports earlier. So you get advanced access to the tenders. So that's what a tender is. Okay. Now we're going to start talking about your room. Okay. So your room is either a stateroom or a cabin, right? It can be a suite, but it's not a hotel room. Okay, so you don't call it a hotel room, or it's typically you call it a cabin. I'm going back to my cabin. They have balcony staterooms. So the balcony stateroom is a stateroom that has a sliding door that goes to a balcony. They have interior staterooms, and they are interior. You have no windows. Now, there are some ships like the Harmony of the Seas with Royal Caribbean that have virtual rooms now. So they'll put a big TV screen vertical on a wall, and it's live fed from wherever on the ship. You can be outside, like if you're looking at a balcony. If you're like on the Harmony of Seas, you can have it to where it's on the boardwalk or Central Park, things like that. Ocean View Stateroom. An Ocean View Stateroom is a stateroom with a porthole. So you can look out the window, you can be a window licker, but you can't get that fresh air in your face. Okay. And then they have specialty staterooms, so like the suites and stuff like that. Price-wise, interior, ocean view, balcony, suites. So obviously the suites are higher. The interior ones without a view, they are all interior, so you don't have a view. And then if you get one that's got a virtual balcony, you got to pay a little bit more for that. But that is your cabins, right? And the suites. So let's talk about some cruise ship terminology. Okay. So the bow is the front of the boat. Okay. Or forward. So if somebody says go forward or to the bow, that's forward. So the way to think about it, I'll give you some ways to think about stuff, right? When you bow, like if you're in Japan and you're bowing, you're going forward. Okay. The bridge. Okay, it's not a bridge. It's what they call where the captain and the crew that are piloting the boat stay. Okay, that's the bridge, the command center, if you will, of the ship. The galley, that's the ship's kitchen. Okay, gangway. Okay, Gangway is where you can get on and off of the ship. So sometimes you can pull right up to the port and they drop right to it, like a few steps down, and you're right on the port. Sometimes you've got to go down a bunch of stairs, or they bring like a little tunnel, like airplanes, right? And it comes up, and you can walk off of it from a higher deck, and then you go down like that. Most of the time, you'll use that when you're getting on and off the ship at your departure and arrival port versus your port of calls. The helm. The helm is the area of the bridge where the steering wheel is located. Okay, so if you remember, like in the old movies, they had the wheel with all the little knobs, and you could spin it, and it would just turn the boat. That's really like not there anymore. Now it's like remote control joystick to operate it, but that's the helm. The helm is the controller for the steering of the ship. Okay, keel. The keel is the ship's bottom. So if you're ever in port, most of the time it's colored red, and at the front you'll see like this big tube. All right, and that's to help with the aerodynamics of the ship and stuff like that. Leeward, the side of the ship where you'll feel the most sheltered from the wind. That's leeward. So windward is the wind side. Leeward is the lack of wind side. Okay. Lido. Okay. The Lido deck. The Lido deck can be any number of decks depending on the ship that you're on. Okay. For example, I want to try and see if I can remember this right. We were on the Jewel of the Seas, and I want to say the Lido deck was deck 7. We were on the Oasis of the Seas, and I want to say the Lido deck was deck 13. Now, I could be wrong on those decks. You have to forgive me, but I'm trying to use it as an example, right? Lido deck isn't a specific number. The Lido deck is where the pool is at. So if somebody says, hey, we're going to be having a party on the Lido deck at 5 o'clock, then you know, hey, I need to be by the pool at 5 o'clock. So it just sounds cooler to say Lido instead of pool. I guess, I don't know. Midship, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? You got forward or the bow. Now you got midship, it's the middle of the ship. Okay. Then you got aft, which is the back of the ship. Okay. Now it's also known as the stern. So aft or stern is the back of the ship. Forward or bow is the front. So what is the left and what is the right? The left is port and the right is starboard. Now here's how I remember the difference. Port is 4 letters. Left, 4 letters. So port is the left side. Starboard is the right. I can't come up with the same numbers for starboard and right, but I can for port and I can for left. So if you remember, port is left, starboard is right, forward, aft, or bow or stern. Pretty much when I cruise, I hear forward, aft, port, and stern. That's really about it. Okay. Upper deck. The upper deck is typically where the entertainment's at. Okay, it just depends on where at. So on the upper decks of like the Allure of the Seas, for example, on the upper decks you'll find the sports court, the mini golf, the zip lining, the rock climbing, the aqua theater. You just find all the bigger entertainment type stuff on the upper decks. Okay, not the theater, not the casino. Those are usually like in the middle of the ship. But the upper decks are typically where you're going to find all the roller coasters and wave riders and everything else that you got going on there. Okay, so that, my friends, is pretty much the most common terms for cruising. If you can tell, we just kind of cruise through that. But don't let the terminology get you. Okay, there's maps everywhere. So as long as you know the ship is moving in one direction, just look out the window, and if the waves are going, if you're looking out the window and the waves are going this way, then your forward or bow will be in that direction. If you're looking out the window and the waves are going this way, all right, that's in the opposite direction, right? So just look at where the ship's going, and you always know what's forward and aft, or front and back, or bow and stern, right? But if you got on the cruise ship and you're like, hey, What side is the windjammer on? People are probably going to say, oh, well, it's going to be on deck, whatever, forward. And they're like, okay, I got that one figured out. But if they were like, well, what side is the smoking section on? They say the starboard side. Just ask them, what side is that? And they'll tell you that side, or they'll say the right side or whatever. So don't stress over it. You'll learn the terminology. I've been on about 12 cruises. That's why I know everything. I just using the cheat sheet to make sure I didn't miss anything. That could be pretty key to that. So if you have any questions about cruising, you want to book a cruise, hit me up. I am a travel agent with Cruise Planners, and we do get a lot of group discounts and group rates. A lot of them will throw in some onboard cash as well. So don't forget to keep me in mind when you're looking at booking your cruises, because I can probably get you the same one cheaper than you can online through the carriers. So until next time, I'll see you next trip.